Olivia Bennet, 34, stared at the empty chairs where her parents should have been sitting at her daughter's birthday party. The $700 weekly payments she'd been making to help with their retirement weren't just about money, they represented trust. As her daughter's smile faded, looking for her missing grandparents, Olivia felt something break inside her. What she discovered next would unravel decades of family lies and forever change who she could trust. Before we dive into my shocking family betrayal story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. Family drama hits differently, doesn't it? Now, let's get into how I discovered the truth behind my parents' betrayal. Growing up in suburban Boston, I was raised to believe family loyalty came above everything else. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Bennet, projected the image of the perfect American family. Dad worked as an investment advisor. Mom managed the household with precision, and I was their accomplished only child. Our colonial-style home hosted neighborhood barbecues where guests would comment on how fortunate I was to have such devoted parents. Family is the only thing you can truly count on in this world. Livy, my father would say during our Sunday dinners, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that had guided my decisions since childhood. My mother would nod along, adding, "Blood is thicker than water, sweetheart, remember that." I absorbed these lessons like gospel. When college acceptance letters arrived, I chose Boston University instead of my dream school in California. Staying close to family was non-negotiable. When I met Jason in my junior year, my parents' approval mattered more than my own feelings. Every major life decision passed through the filter of, what would make the family proud? After graduation, I secured a position at a marketing firm and married Jason within a year, right on schedule, according to my parents' life plan. For me, we bought a house just 15 minutes from my childhood home, ensuring Sunday dinners remained a sacred tradition. When I became pregnant with Lily at 28, my mother immediately rearranged her schedule to help with childcare. Our family unit seemed unbreakable, a fortress against the outside world. Then came my father's unexpected early retirement at 62. During a family dinner, he announced that his company was downsizing and he'd accepted a buyout package. My mother put on a brave face, but I caught the flicker of worry in her eyes. "We'll be fine," she assured everyone at the table. "We've been saving for this day." 2 months later, the truth emerged during an emotional phone call. My mother's voice trembled as she confessed they weren't as financially prepared as they'd claimed. The 2008 recession had decimated their retirement accounts, and they'd been too proud to admit it. Medical bills from my father's minor heart procedure had further strained their resources. "We'll figure something out," I promised immediately without consulting Jason. Family takes care of family. That evening, I proposed a solution to Jason. We would pay my parents $700 weekly to help them through this rough patch. It was a substantial amount that would require tightening our own budget, but family came first, always. Jason hesitated, initially concerned about our own financial future and Lily's college fund, but I was adamant. "They've always been there for us," I insisted. "Now it's our turn to be there for them." Jason eventually agreed, though, with reservations. We set up an automatic transfer every Friday, ensuring my parents would have stability. In return, they would help with Lily after school 3 days a week, an arrangement that seemed to benefit everyone. My father's pride was preserved by framing it as payment for childcare rather than financial assistance, though we all understood the reality. The arrangement functioned smoothly for nearly 2 years. My parents doted on Lily, picking her up from school and staying with her until Jason or I returned from work. They never missed a school play, a soccer game, or a parent-teacher conference when we couldn't attend. Our family unit seemed stronger than ever, bound by mutual support and the unspoken agreement that we would always prioritize each other. But beneath this perfect exterior, cracks were forming that I couldn't yet see. My father began taking mysterious phone calls that would abruptly end when I entered the room. My mother started canceling plans last minute, offering vague excuses about not feeling well. I dismissed these warning signs, attributing them to the natural stress of aging and financial insecurity. "Everything okay, Mom?" I asked one evening, when she seemed particularly distracted. "Of course, darling," she replied, with that practiced smile that had comforted me throughout childhood. "Just a little tired today." I believed her because I needed to believe her. Because the alternative that the foundation of trust our family was built upon might be crumbling was too painful to consider. I couldn't imagine that the parents who had taught me about loyalty and family bonds were capable of betrayal. I couldn't foresee that their empty chairs at my daughter's birthday party would be the first visible crack in our family's carefully constructed facade. Looking back, I should have recognized the signs, the hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room, the new clothes and restaurant receipts despite their claimed financial hardship, the growing distance in their eyes when they spoke about future plans. But I was raised to trust family implicitly, and that trust had become my blindfold. Lily's 7th birthday fell on a perfect Saturday in May. For weeks, she had been buzzing with excitement about her unicorn-themed party. As a working mother constantly battling guilt about divided attention, I had poured myself into making this day special. Handcrafted invitations, a custom cake from the expensive bakery across town, and a backyard transformed into a magical unicorn kingdom with twinkling lights and pastel decorations. "Grandma and Grandpa are coming, right?" Lily had asked repeatedly in the days leading up to her celebration. "They promised to help me make unicorn bracelets for my friends." "Of course, sweetheart," I assured her. They wouldn't miss it for anything. The morning of the party, everything was proceeding according to plan. Jason manned the grill while I arranged cupcakes and set up the craft station. Guests began arriving at noon, classmates with wrapped presents, neighbors bearing additional snacks, friends from Lily's soccer team. By 1 o'clock, the backyard was filled with the chaotic joy of children playing and adults chatting. Only 2 seats remained conspicuously empty, the special chairs decorated with Grandma and Grandpa signs that Lily had made herself. "Maybe they're just running late," Jason suggested, but his tone betrayed his doubt. My parents were never late. I called their cell phones repeatedly straight to voicemail. I texted urgent messages that remained unread. By the time we gathered for cake, the knot in my stomach had tightened painfully. As we sang Happy Birthday, I watched Lily's eyes continuously dart to the gate, expecting her grandparents to rush in with apologies and extra gifts as they always did when they were delayed. When it came time for Lily to blow out her candles, she hesitated, her small face crumpling in disappointment. "Can we wait 5 more minutes for Grandma and Grandpa?" she whispered. The question broke my heart. "Make your wish, sweetie," I encouraged, forcing brightness into my voice. "I'm sure they'll be here soon." But they didn't come, not for cake, not for presents, not even as the party wound down and guests began to leave. By late afternoon, when we were cleaning up scattered wrapping paper and deflated balloons, I was vacillating between panic and fury. It wasn't like my parents to disappear without explanation, especially not on Lily's birthday, which they had been helping plan for weeks. "Maybe we should drive by their house," Jason suggested, concern now evident in his voice. "Make sure everything's okay." Just as we were about to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Sorry, we missed the party. Something came up. Call you tomorrow." That was it. No explanation, no elaborate apology. None of the excessive remorse I would have expected from the parents who had lectured me endlessly about responsibility and family obligations. "Something came up," I repeated incredulously to Jason. What could possibly be more important than their only grandchild's birthday? That night, after tucking an unusually quiet Lily into bed with assurances that Grandma and Grandpa probably had an emergency, I tried calling my parents' ex again. Still no answer. I scrolled through my social media feeds mindlessly, trying to distract myself from the uncharacteristic behavior that had left a shadow over our day. Then I saw a photo posted 3 hours earlier by Susan Collins, my mother's cousin. The image showed my parents beaming at an outdoor restaurant, raising glasses of champagne in a toast. The caption read, "Celebrating with Richard and Eleanor, so excited for their new adventure. Number, retirement goals. Number, living the dream." My hands shook as I enlarged the image. There was no mistake. While Lily had been opening presents with tears in her eyes, wondering where her grandparents were, they had been celebrating something with extended family members. They hadn't suffered an accident. They weren't dealing with an emergency. They had simply chosen to be somewhere else. I showed the photo to Jason, whose expression hardened. "Call them, now." This time, my mother answered on the second ring, her voice slightly slurred. "Olivia, darling, how was the party? Where are you?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Lily waited for you all day." There was a pause, then muffled sounds as though she was moving to a quieter location. "Oh, we had a last-minute opportunity come up. We tried to make it, but time got away from us." "An opportunity," I echoed. "More important than your granddaughter's birthday that's been planned for months." My mother sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Olivia. There will be other birthdays. We'll make it up to her with an extra special gift." The casual dismissal of Lily's disappointment stunned me into momentary silence. This wasn't the mother who had taught me that family obligations were sacred, who had made me feel guilty for missing a single Sunday dinner. "We'll talk about this tomorrow," I finally said, my voice cold. "When you're sober." I hung up before she could respond, a churning mixture of confusion and anger, making it impossible to continue the conversation rationally. Jason put his arm around me as I stared blankly at the wall, trying to reconcile the parents I thought I knew with their inexplicable behavior. "There has to be an explanation," I whispered, more to myself than to Jason. "We'll find out tomorrow," he agreed, though his tone suggested he was preparing for the worst. "But Olivia, this isn't about missing a party. This is about respect for you, for Lily, and for the financial support we've been providing." He was right, of course. The $700 weekly payments weren't charity, they represented sacrifice on our part. Hours of extra work, vacations not taken, home improvements delayed. We had rearranged our lives to support my parents, believing they were doing the same for us by helping with Lily. The mutual respect that underpinned this arrangement seemed suddenly alarmingly one-sided. That night, sleep eluded me as questions multiplied in my mind. What new adventure were they celebrating? Why had they kept it secret from us? And most troublingly, was this an isolated incident, or had I been blind to a pattern of deception? Sunday morning arrived with a heaviness that seeped into my bones. Jason took Lily to the park, understanding without words that I needed space to confront my parents alone. I drove the familiar route to their house, rehearsing what I would say, how I would remain calm and rational despite the hurt and confusion roiling inside me. Their driveway was empty when I arrived, another unusual sign. Their car was always there on Sunday mornings. I used my emergency key to enter, calling out as I stepped into the unusually quiet house. "Mom, Dad, it's me." No response. The kitchen was immaculate, no sign of their usual Sunday morning coffee ritual. I moved through the living room, noticing subtle changes, empty spaces on bookshelves, missing decorative items that had been fixtures throughout my childhood. A chill ran through me as I climbed the stairs to their bedroom. The door was ajar, and what I saw inside froze me in place. Half-packed suitcases lay open on the bed. Dresser drawers stood empty, their contents sorted into piles on the floor. A stack of travel brochures for Florida retirement communities sat on my father's nightstand. I was still trying to process this scene when I heard the front door open downstairs and my parents' voices drifted up. animated, cheerful, completely at odds with what I expected after yesterday's missed birthday party. Olivia. My mother's surprised voice came from the doorway behind me. We didn't expect you today. I turned slowly, taking in their casual appearance, shopping bags in hand, no trace of guilt or remorse on their faces. Clearly, I replied, gesturing to the half-packed room. What's going on? My father set down his bags, straightening his shoulders in that familiar way that signaled he was preparing to take charge of a situation. We were going to tell you this week once everything was finalized. Tell me, what I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. My mother stepped forward, her smile brittle. We've made a decision, darling. We're moving to Florida. We found the most wonderful retirement community in Naples, golf courses, swimming pools, social events every night. It's everything we've always dreamed of. Naples, I echoed, struggling to understand. But, how you said you couldn't afford retirement. My parents exchanged a glance that sent another wave of unease through me. Well, my father began, his business voice taking over. We've been saving the money you've been giving us. Combined with some fortunate investments, we have enough for a down payment on a lovely villa in the community. The words hit me like physical blows. They had been saving the money, the $700 weekly payments that had strained our family's budget, delayed our own home renovations, reduced Lily's extracurricular activities. Money I believed was keeping them afloat was instead funding a luxury retirement they had hidden from us. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice now trembling with anger. You told us you were struggling, financially accepted over $70,000 from us over the past 2 years, while secretly planning to move to a luxury retirement community in Florida. Don't be dramatic, Olivia, my mother said. Dismissively, we did need the money for this, and we've earned our retirement after all these years of hard work. You missed Lily's birthday to celebrate this. I gestured to the travel brochures. To toast your new adventure with people who don't even send her Christmas cards. My father sighed impatiently. It was an important meeting with the real estate agent. These properties go quickly, and we had to move fast. Susan and her husband are considering the same community, so they joined us afterward. It was unfortunate timing with Lily's party, but these opportunities don't wait. Unfortunate timing, I repeated hollowly. Do you have any idea how heartbroken she was? She cried herself to sleep last night. Children are resilient, my mother said with a wave of her hand. We'll make it up to her with a special gift from Florida. Her casual dismissal of Lily's feelings ignited something fierce within me. This isn't about a missed party. This is about lying to me, to Jason, to Lily. For years, apparently. We didn't lie, my father countered, his tone hardening. We just didn't share all the details of our financial planning. As adults, we're entitled to privacy. Privacy? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call accepting money under false pretenses? Because in most contexts, that's called fraud. My mother's face flushed with indignation. How dare you? After everything we've done for you, we raised you, put you through college, helped with Lily. A few months of financial assistance hardly compares to a lifetime of parental sacrifice. Her words struck a nerve, the ingrained belief that children are forever indebted to their parents, that no amount of reciprocity could ever balance the scales. It was the foundation of the guilt that had driven me to hand over thousands without question, to prioritize their needs above my own family's. You're right, I said quietly. It doesn't compare. Because when I needed you, when Lily needed you, you chose yourselves. Just like you're doing now. My father stepped forward, his expression softening in that calculated way I'd seen him use in difficult business negotiations. Livy tried to understand. We're not getting any younger. This is our chance to enjoy our golden years. Surely you want that for us? What I wanted, I replied, was honesty, respect, the same loyalty you always demanded from me. A heavy silence filled the room, as decades of unspoken expectations and assumptions hung between us. My parents had always projected an image of selfless devotion to family, but faced with their first significant opportunity for self-indulgence, they had abandoned those principles without hesitation. "When are you leaving?" I finally asked. "Next week," my father answered. "The movers come Thursday." The timeline stunned me. Next week, were you even going to tell us before you left, or just send a postcard from Florida? Of course we were going to tell you, my mother insisted, though her eyes slid away from mine. We were waiting for the right moment. After Lily's birthday, apparently, I noted bitterly. How convenient. Another uncomfortable silence descended. I looked around the room at the physical dismantling of my childhood home and felt a parallel dismantling of my understanding of my parents and our relationship. "We hope you'll visit," my father offered. "There's a lovely guest suite in the villa. Lily would love the pool." The casual invitation, as if nothing fundamental had changed between us, pushed me past my breaking point. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about moving to Florida. It's about the fact that you lied to us, took our money under false pretenses, and prioritized your dream retirement over your relationship with your granddaughter." "You're overreacting," my mother snapped. "This victim role doesn't suit you, Olivia. We raised you to be stronger than this." Her dismissal of my legitimate feelings was so familiar that I suddenly recognized it as a pattern throughout my life. My parents defining the acceptable boundaries of my emotional responses, invalidating anything that made them uncomfortable or cast them in a negative light. "I'm not overreacting," I said with newfound clarity. "I'm finally seeing clearly. And what I see is that the family loyalty you preached was always meant to flow in one direction toward you." I moved toward the door, knowing there was nothing more to be said in this moment. My father called after me, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that had always brought me back in line. "Olivia, don't leave like this. Let's discuss this rationally." I paused at the doorway. "We can talk again before you leave. But right now, I need space to process the fact that the parents who taught me about honesty and family obligation have been manipulating me for years." As I drove home, tears blurred my vision, not just for the immediate betrayal, but for the realization that the foundation of my family relationships might have always been built on conditional love and calculated self-interest disguised as parental wisdom. The perfect family I had believed in was crumbling, and I had no idea what would remain when the dust settled. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, having internalized my parents' work ethic that bordered on martyrdom. But the sleepless night had left me hollow-eyed and trembling, utterly incapable of maintaining professional composure. After dropping Lily at school with extra hugs and reassurances that everything was fine, I sat in my parked car and finally allowed myself to cry, deep heaving sobs that seemed to come from some ancient place of hurt. When the storm of emotion finally subsided, I drove not home but to my parents' financial advisor's office. Martin Goldstein had managed their investments for decades and had occasionally offered me advice when I was starting my career. If anyone knew the truth about my parents' financial situation, it would be him. Martin's receptionist greeted me warmly, recognizing me from previous visits with my father. "Olivia, lovely to see you. Are you joining your parents today?" "They're not on the schedule." "No, I was hoping to speak with Martin privately," I replied, summoning a composure I didn't feel. "It's about their recent decisions." She hesitated only briefly before picking up the phone. Within minutes, I was ushered into Martin's wood-paneled office, where he greeted me with a concerned expression. "Olivia, what a surprise! Is everything all right? Your father didn't mention you'd be coming in." I took a deep breath. "My parents don't know I'm here. I need to understand something, and I'm hoping you can help me without violating any confidentiality." Martin's expression grew cautious as he gestured for me to sit. I'll help if I can, but you understand, there are limits to what I can discuss about your parents' finances without their permission. I understand, I assured him. I just need to know were my parents in financial trouble after Dad's early retirement? Were they at risk of losing their home or unable to cover basic expenses? The slight widening of Martin's eyes told me everything before he even spoke. Financial trouble. Quite the opposite. Your father's buyout package was extremely generous, 6 months' full salary, plus a lump sum based on his years of service. Combined with their investments and pension, they're in the top 10% of my clients in terms of retirement readiness. Though I had suspected as much after seeing their Florida plans, hearing it confirmed sent a wave of nausea through me. So they never needed the weekly payments I've been making to them for the past 2 years. Martin shifted uncomfortably. I can't comment specifically on their personal financial decisions or any arrangements between you. But I can say that based on my professional assessment, your parents have been in an excellent position to enjoy a comfortable retirement since your father left his company. I see, I said quietly, my mind racing through calculations over $70. 000, given to people who had no financial need, money that could have gone toward Lily's education, fund our mortgage, Jason's dream of starting his own business. May I ask, Martin ventured carefully, what prompted these payments? I explained briefly about my parents' claims of financial hardship, watching Martin's expression shift from surprise to something that looked uncomfortably like pity. I'm sorry, Olivia. Family financial dynamics can be complicated. Perhaps they had concerns about their long-term security that went beyond the numbers. But we both knew that wasn't true. Martin handed me his card as I stood to leave. If you need any financial planning help of your own, please call me directly. No charge. It's the least I can do. The gesture of compassion nearly broke through my fragile composure. I thanked him and hurried out, nearly colliding with Susan Collins, my mother's cousin from the champagne toast photo in the hallway. Olivia, she exclaimed. What a coincidence. I'm just dropping off some paperwork for Eleanor and Richard. Isn't their Florida news exciting? They've been planning this move for years. Her words stopped me cold. Years? They only told me yesterday. Susan's expression transformed into the unique discomfort of someone who has accidentally revealed a secret. Oh, I assumed you knew. They've been researching Florida communities since before Richard retired. They visited 3 times last year to tour properties. The timeline didn't make sense. But they told me Dad's retirement was unexpected, a company downsizing. Susan laughed. Downsizing? No. Richard had been counting down the days until his planned retirement. He had a wall calendar in his office where he marked off days until he could claim his full pension and benefits. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Between us, I think Eleanor was getting tired of the New England winters. She's been talking about Florida since your wedding, at least. Each revelation felt like another foundation stone crumbling beneath me. I mumbled something about being late for an appointment and escaped to my car, where I sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to reconcile these new truths with the narrative I'd believed for years. On an impulse, I drove to my childhood best friend Rachel's house. Her parents had been close with mine, often vacationing together when we were growing up. If anyone had insight into my parents' true plans, it would be her mother, Patricia. Patricia welcomed me with surprise and concern, immediately sensing my distress. Over coffee at her kitchen table, the story poured out of me, the financial support, the missed birthday, the Florida revelation. Oh, Olivia, she sighed when I finished. I wondered if something like this might happen. You knew, I asked, my voice small. Not specifically about the money, she clarified. But your parents have been. Well, they've always had a certain way of managing family relationships. Your mother mentioned their Florida plans to me at least 3 years ago, but swore me to secrecy. She said they were waiting for the right time to tell you. But why lie about needing financial help? Patricia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Your parents have always been concerned with appearances. I think they felt entitled to your support regardless of whether they truly needed it. But why? Because they raised you, she said simply. In their view, children owe their parents for the sacrifice of parenthood. It's not a perspective I share, she added quickly, but it's consistent with how they've always talked about family obligations. A memory surfaced, my mother commenting on a news story about elderly parents suing their adult children in some Asian country for support. That's how it should be, she had said. Children have a responsibility to repay their parents in old age. At the time, I had nodded along, absorbing another lesson in filial duty. Patricia reached across the table to squeeze my hand. There's something else you should know. Your mother asked me recently if we'd be interested in buying some of their furniture before they moved. When I asked about family heirlooms, especially your grandmother's dining set that you always loved, she said they were selling it to an antique dealer who had offered top dollar. The casual disposal of family treasures I had expected to inherit someday was a small betrayal compared to the financial deception, yet somehow it crystallized everything. My parents weren't just moving to Florida, they were deliberately severing ties to a past that included me, while simultaneously extracting maximum financial benefit from our relationship. I should have said something sooner, Patricia admitted. But it's so hard to intervene in family matters, especially with friends as strong-willed as your parents. I felt numb as I thanked her and left. Driving aimlessly, I found myself at the local library where I had spent countless hours as a child. Seeking the comfort of familiar surroundings, I wandered inside and settled into a quiet corner with my laptop. Almost without conscious decision, I began searching for information about financial exploitation of adult children by parents. What I found was both validating and devastating scholarly articles about family financial abuse forums filled with stories disturbingly similar to mine, psychological analyses of parents who view their children as extensions of themselves, or as investment properties expected to yield returns. One article particularly caught my attention: the parentification trap when children become emotional caretakers. It described how some parents reverse the natural order of the parent-child relationship, making children responsible for the parent's emotional and financial well-being from an early age. The descriptions of how these dynamics persist into adulthood, with adult children continuing to prioritize their parents' needs over their own families, felt like reading my own biography. Would you believe I'm still uncovering new layers to this family drama? If you're as invested in discovering where this goes as I am right now, hit that like button while I take a breath. I'd love to know if any of you have dealt with parents who suddenly changed their stories. Drop a comment below and let me know you're still with me. Trust me, what happens next shocked even my closest friends. Subscribe so you don't miss how I finally stood up for myself and my daughter when the truth came out. Let's continue. As I continued researching, emails from work piled up unanswered on my phone. The irony wasn't lost on me. Even now, I was neglecting professional responsibilities because I was consumed with my parents' issues. The pattern was so ingrained that breaking it felt like tearing away a part of myself. That evening, I asked our neighbor to watch Lily while Jason and I had a serious conversation. We sat at our kitchen table, financial documents spread before us, bank statements showing the regular $700 withdrawals, spreadsheets calculating what those funds could have done for our family, mortgage statements showing how much sooner we could have paid off our home. I feel like such a fool, I whispered, staring at the numbers. All this time, I thought I was being a good daughter. Instead, I was just being manipulated. Jason covered my hand with his. Unlike me, he had grown up with parents who respected boundaries and encouraged independence. He had questioned my unquestioning support of my parents from the beginning, but had ultimately respected my decision. You weren't foolish, he said firmly. You were being the person they raised you to be: loyal, dutiful, putting family first. They're the ones who betrayed those values, not you. What do we do now? I asked, the question encompassing so much more than just the money. Jason considered before answering. First, we stop the payments immediately. Second, we need to decide what kind of relationship we want with them going forward, especially concerning Lily. And third, he hesitated. Third, what I think you should consider talking to someone professional about this. A therapist who specializes in family dynamics. This isn't just about money, Olivia. It's about a lifetime of manipulation that's affecting how you see yourself and your worth. The suggestion would have offended me a week earlier. Therapy had always been dismissed in my family as something for weak people who can't handle life. But now, recognizing that belief as yet another inherited limitation, I nodded slowly. I think you're right. But first, I need to have one more conversation with my parents. 3 days passed before I felt strong enough to face my parents again. During that time, I dove deeper into understanding the patterns that had shaped our relationship. I joined online forums for adult children of narcissistic parents, finding painful recognition in strangers' stories. I spoke with a therapist who specialized in family systems, scheduling a proper appointment for the following week. And most importantly, I spent intentional time with Lily and Jason, observing the healthy family dynamic we were building, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. On Wednesday evening, knowing the movers were coming the next day, I drove to my parents' house alone. The neighborhood streets were bathed in golden evening light, a peaceful contrast to the turmoil inside me. As I parked in their driveway, I noticed a sold sign already planted in the front yard. Another decision made without consultation or even notification. My mother answered the door with a bright smile that faltered slightly when she saw my expression. Olivia, we were wondering when you'd come by. There are some family photos you might want to take before everything gets packed. The casual greeting, as if our last conversation hadn't happened, was so typical that I almost slipped back into our usual dynamic of avoiding conflict. Instead, I stepped inside with new resolve. We need to talk. Is Dad here in his study going through some papers? Richard, she called. Olivia's here. The house was in disarray with labeled boxes stacked in every room. I noticed that the valuable items were already missing: the antique clock from the hallway, the oil paintings from the living room. Quick sales for extra cash, no doubt. My father emerged from his study, his initial smile giving way to wariness when he saw my expression. Livy, good to see you. Have you come to help pack? No, I replied evenly. I've come for answers. And this time, I need the truth. My parents exchanged a glance I recognized from childhood, the silent communication that preceded a united front against any questioning of their authority. Let's sit down, my father suggested, gesturing to the living room where a few chairs remained unpacked. Once seated, I pulled out a folder containing bank statements documenting every payment I had made. I've spoken with Martin Goldstein. I began watching their expressions carefully. And with Susan and Patricia Miller. My mother's face tightened. You've been investigating us, your own parents. I've been seeking the truth, I corrected, something I should have been able to get from you directly. My father leaned forward, adopting his reasonable negotiator pose. Olivia, I understand you're upset about the Florida decision. But going behind our backs to our financial advisor and friends is hardly appropriate. Neither is lying to your daughter about needing financial support, I countered. Martin confirmed what I suspected: you've never been in financial trouble. The retirement package, the investments, the pension, you've been more than comfortable all along. That's private information, my father said sharply. Martin had no right. He didn't give me specifics, I interrupted. He didn't need to. Your luxury villa in Naples told me everything I needed to know. My mother sighed dramatically. Is this really about money, Olivia? After everything we've done for you throughout your life, you're begrudging us some assistance in our golden years. The familiar guilt trip nearly worked. I felt the instinctive wave of shame at questioning my parents' entitlement to my support. But this time, I pushed through it. This isn't about the money itself, I said carefully. It's about the deception. You claimed to need financial help when you didn't. You let me sacrifice my family's financial future while you were planning a luxury retirement. And when it came time to choose between a commitment to your granddaughter and your own desires, you chose yourselves without hesitation. My father's expression hardened. We did need the money for the lifestyle we wanted. And as for Lily's birthday, it was unfortunate timing, but these things happen. You're blowing this out of proportion. Am I? Susan told me you've been planning this move for years. Years during which you pretended Dad's retirement was unexpected and that you were struggling. We were protecting you, my mother insisted. We didn't want you to worry about our plans until they were finalized. Protecting me, I laughed incredulously. By taking $700 a week from me under false pretenses, that's not protection, Mom. That's exploitation. The word hung in the air between us, harsh but accurate. My father's face flushed with anger. How dare you, he said quietly, after everything we've sacrificed for you. And that's exactly the problem, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. You see parenthood as a sacrifice that creates a debt I can never repay. But that's not how it's supposed to work. Parents choose to have children. Children don't choose to be born. My mother stood abruptly. I won't sit here and be lectured about parenthood by someone who clearly doesn't appreciate what we've done for her. I appreciate the good things, I said, remaining seated. You provided for me materially. You encouraged education and achievement. But you also taught me that love is conditional, that family loyalty means putting your needs above my own, and that I should feel perpetually indebted to you for doing what parents are supposed to do. The silence that followed was heavy with decades of unspoken truths. What exactly do you want from us? My father finally asked. I took a deep breath. First, I want you to acknowledge what you did, that you deliberately misled me about your finances to get money you didn't need. We did need it, my mother insisted stubbornly. For wants, not needs, I corrected. There's a difference, my father sighed. Fine, we could have managed without your financial assistance. But it helped us achieve the retirement we wanted sooner. Is that what you want to hear? It wasn't an apology, but it was at least an admission. I continued. Second, I'm stopping the payments effective immediately. That's your decision, he replied stiffly. Third, I said if you want to have a relationship with Lily and me going forward, things need to change. No more manipulation. No more guilt trips. No more treating me like an extension of yourselves rather than an independent adult with my own family to prioritize, my mother scoffed. So we're supposed to beg for access to our own granddaughter now? No, I replied calmly. You're supposed to respect boundaries, be honest, and recognize that relationships are built on mutual respect, not obligation. If you can do that, you'll always be welcome in our lives. If not, I let the implication hang in the air. You're giving us an ultimatum. My father's voice was incredulous. I'm establishing healthy boundaries, I corrected. Something I should have done years ago. I stood gathering my documents. You're leaving tomorrow. I understand that. Lily and I will come by in the morning to say goodbye. After that, the ball is in your court. You can choose to build a new relationship with us based on honesty, or you can continue as you have been, but without our financial support or automatic accommodation of your demands. As I moved toward the door, my mother called after me. You'll regret this, Olivia. When you're older, you'll understand what we did for you. I turned back one last time. I hope when I'm older, Lily never has to have this conversation with me. Because I'm teaching her that love doesn't come with a price tag. Walking out of that house, my childhood home now sold to strangers, felt like shedding a weight I hadn't known I was carrying. The future relationship with my parents was uncertain, but for the first time, that uncertainty felt like freedom rather than failure. The morning of my parents' departure dawned bright and clear. I had prepared Lily, carefully explaining in age-appropriate terms that Grandma and Grandpa were moving far away, but that we would find ways to stay connected if everyone tried their best. She had taken the news with a resilience that children often show in the face of adult complications, more concerned about whether she could swim in their Florida pool than about the complex dynamics that had led to this moment. As we pulled into the driveway, the moving truck was already being loaded. My parents stood on the front lawn directing the movers with the same efficient authority they had applied to every aspect of their lives and mine. Grandpa, Lily called, running toward them with unguarded enthusiasm that made my heart ache. Despite everything, she loved them unconditionally, the way children naturally do before they learn about the complexities of adult relationships. My mother embraced her with genuine affection while my father ruffled her hair in his customary greeting. I approached more slowly, uncertain how they would receive me after our confrontation. "The movers are ahead of schedule," my father announced, his tone businesslike. "We should be on the road by noon." I brought coffee and donuts, I offered, holding up the peace offering I had picked up on the way. "Thought everyone could use a break." A flicker of surprise crossed my mother's face at this gesture. After our last conversation, she had probably expected continued hostility. But I had spent the night reflecting on what kind of example I wanted to set for Lily, not one of bitterness or retribution, but of setting boundaries while still choosing civility and compassion when possible. We sat on the front steps watching the movers work while sharing this last impromptu meal at the house where I had grown up. The conversation remained superficial: travel routes, Florida, weather, Lily's recent art project, but without the undercurrent of manipulation I now recognized had colored our interactions for years. As Lily explored the nearly empty house, fascinated by how different it looked without furniture, my mother leaned toward me. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began hesitantly. "About the money." I waited, not rushing to fill the uncomfortable silence. "We didn't see it as deception," she continued. "In our minds, you owed us that support. But, looking back," she glanced at my father, who was pointedly focusing on his coffee, "I can see how it might have seemed misleading." It wasn't quite an apology, but from my mother, this acknowledgement was unprecedented. I nodded, accepting the olive branch for what it was. "And missing Lily's birthday," she added, her voice lower. "That was wrong. We should have been there." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You should have." My father cleared his throat, joining the conversation reluctantly. "We've set up a college fund for Lily," he announced, "with some of the money you provided." It seemed appropriate. The gesture was complicated, both a tacit admission of wrongdoing and an attempt to regain control by deciding unilaterally how to make amends. The old Olivia would have automatically expressed gratitude regardless of her true feelings. The new Olivia considered her response carefully. "That's thoughtful," I finally said. "But in the future, I'd prefer we discuss major financial decisions regarding Lily together. Partnership, not surprises." My father's expression tightened momentarily before he nodded. "Fair enough." By the time we said our goodbyes, something had shifted subtly. The ground between us felt more stable, though the foundation was still fragile. They hugged Lily fiercely, promising video calls and summer visits. When it came to my goodbye, there was an awkward moment of uncertainty before my mother pulled me into an embrace. "We did our best, Olivia," she whispered. "We didn't always get it right, but we did love you." "I know," I replied, because despite everything I did, their love had been imperfect, conditional, sometimes suffocating, but real in its own way. As we watched their car disappear down the street, Lily slipping her small hand into mine, I felt a complex mixture of grief and liberation. The family dynamics I had accepted as normal for 34 years had been fundamentally altered, and the path forward was uncertain. The weeks that followed brought unexpected discoveries. Without the weekly payments to my parents, our financial situation improved dramatically. Jason and I met with a financial advisor, not Martin Goldstein, whose divided loyalties made me uncomfortable to restructure our savings and create a more secure future for Lily. The therapy sessions I had begun helped me recognize patterns I was unconsciously repeating with my own daughter: subtle expectations of perfection, emotional caretaking, prioritizing family image over authentic connection. Breaking these cycles became my daily work, sometimes painful but always worthwhile. My parents called from Florida weekly, our conversations evolving gradually. Without the financial dependency creating an unhealthy power dynamic, we slowly began building something new, not the idealized family relationship I had desperately maintained for years, but something more honest with clearer boundaries and more realistic expectations. 3 months after their move, a large package arrived at our home. Inside was my grandmother's antique dining set, the heirloom my mother had planned to sell to an antique dealer. A note in my father's handwriting read simply, "This belongs in your family now." The gesture spoke volumes about their capacity for change, however incremental. The table took center place in our dining room, where we now held weekly family dinners focused on genuine connection rather than obligation. As summer approached, the question of visiting my parents in Florida arose. After careful consideration and family discussions, we planned a 4-day trip, long enough for Lily to enjoy the pool she had been dreaming about, but short enough to maintain the healthy boundaries we were establishing. The visit proved revelatory. Away from the environment where our dysfunctional patterns had developed, my parents seemed different, more relaxed, less controlling. The physical distance had created emotional space for everyone to relate differently. They still occasionally slipped into old habits, guilt trips, unsolicited advice, subtle manipulations, but now I could recognize and gently redirect these moments instead of automatically yielding. On our last evening in Florida, sitting on their lanai watching the sunset, while Lily and Jason swam in the community pool, my mother surprised me with an unprecedented question. "Are you happy, Olivia, with your life, your choices?" In the past, such inquiries had been thinly veiled opportunities for her to guide me back to her vision of what my life should be. But something in her tone was different, a genuine curiosity about my subjective experience, rather than an assessment of how well I was meeting external expectations. "I'm getting there," I answered honestly. "I'm learning to trust myself to recognize what I actually want versus what I thought I should want. It's a process." She nodded slowly. "I never gave myself that permission to figure out what I wanted, separate from what was expected of me." This moment of vulnerability, this glimpse into how her own upbringing had shaped her parenting, offered a new perspective on our history together. It didn't excuse the manipulation or the financial exploitation, but it helped me understand it as part of a multi-generational pattern rather than simply personal betrayal. "It's not too late," I told her. "For any of us." By the time we returned home, I had gained something I never expected from the painful events of the past months: compassion for my parents as flawed humans shaped by their own experiences rather than the all-knowing authorities I had both idealized and resented. The weekly financial transfers never resumed, but something more valuable began to flow between us: tentative honesty, gradual forgiveness, and the slow construction of a relationship based on who we actually were, rather than who we thought we should be. 1 year after my parents moved to Florida, we gathered at our home to celebrate Lily's 8th birthday. The dining room was decorated with unicorns her passion had endured, and the table was set with special plates atop my grandmother's antique dining set. This year, no chairs would remain empty. My parents arrived the day before, staying in our guest room rather than a hotel, a sign of our gradually healing relationship. They brought thoughtfully chosen gifts for Lily, having consulted me about her current interests rather than making assumptions. My father even sat patiently through her detailed explanation of her mineral collection, showing genuine interest instead of the polite tolerance he would have shown in the past. As I watched them interact with her, I saw imperfect but genuine love, not the conditional approval that had shaped my childhood, but something warmer and more authentic. They were learning, as was I, how to love without keeping score. The financial betrayal that had triggered our family reckoning was rarely discussed directly anymore, but its lessons permeated our new relationship. My parents had acknowledged in their own way the harm their actions had caused. More importantly, they had shown through consistent behavior that they understood the need for change. When the birthday cake appeared homemade by Jason this year, rather than from the expensive bakery, Lily beamed at the circle of faces around her. "This is the best birthday ever," she declared. "Everyone I love is here." Looking around that table at my daughter, untainted by the dysfunction that had shadowed my own childhood, at Jason, whose steady support had helped me find my voice, at my parents, imperfect but evolving, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the painful awakening that had ultimately led to healing. Family relationships are never perfect. They carry the weight of generational patterns, unspoken expectations, and the complex interplay of love and duty. But they can change, they can heal. And sometimes it takes a betrayal to break open the possibility of something more authentic emerging from the wreckage of what we thought was perfect. As I look at my own daughter now, I make a silent promise to love her without condition, to respect her autonomy, to never make her feel indebted for being loved. The legacy of my family story will end with me, and something healthier will take its place. What about you? Have you ever experienced a moment when family betrayal ultimately led to healing or positive change? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this family drama resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that family relationships can evolve. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Sending love to all of you. Navigating your own complex family dynamics,